On the move. Here we are. We're moving. This past weekend was we had a memorial for my aunt, one of my favorite aunts. I have to say that for just in case one of my other aunts might be listening. I don't want to say my favorite, but just between me and some of the other listening audience that might not be my aunts, she kind of was my favorite. Anyway, she died. Alzheimer's. Good Lord. What a fucked up, stupid disease. They call it a disease. I'm not quite sure. Feels like an accumulation of toxic material in your body more than a disease. Kind of like maybe autism. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I can't diagnose these things. I don't want to talk out of turn, but there's an argument raging over the causes of various things like that. Anyway, I was hanging with my son before the event, and he's got a great sense of humor, and he loves the misdirect joke. And so I said, okay, I got a joke for you. And it was not an appropriate joke at all. As soon as I started telling the joke, and Liz was standing right there, and she just started to roll her eyes because it was like, oh my God, Mish, what are you doing? And it's a joke I've been trying to find on the internet. It's a Steve Martin bit from probably the late 70s or something, like Wild and Crazy Guy, or I'm a Rambling Man, when he plays banjo and juggle and fucking wear that white leisure suit and yada yada. He would always get, be in a white tux that was like too tight, and he'd button it, and his chest lapels would be all fanned open. I don't know, I just thought he was when I was a kid, Steve Martin was like the fucking funniest, coolest dude. And this was my favorite Steve Martin bit. And I'm going to just destroy this joke, but I'm going to try to tell it right now. Because I don't know exactly how it goes. But he goes, yeah, today marks... he's really somber at the beginning of the joke. He's like, yeah, about a year ago today, I lost a really good friend. And I feel kind of responsible. She'd been drinking, and she climbed into a car, and I ran up to the window and I said, you shouldn't be driving. You're drunk. And she said, I'm fine. I'm getting out of here. Just leave me alone. I'm fine. So I shot her right between the eyes. And okay, so I didn't deliver the joke properly, and that's not the cadence. And he does a way better job to sort of modulate his voice. But you're expecting this woman to get into a car wreck, and it's this tragic thing, and blah blah blah. Anyway, I told the joke to Gus, and he lost his mind. He was laughing so hard, and Liz was like, "What is the deal? Why are you?" Our child's 9 years old. It's not an appropriate joke. Plus the fact that it's kind of like a man shooting a woman. It's like, there's nothing funny about that. Drinking, driving, there's nothing, you know what I mean? But, so we go to this memorial event over the weekend, and Gus just starts telling that joke to family members. And I was like, and then he forced me, he walked up, he's like, Dad, tell him that joke, tell him that joke. And I was like, Gus, that's not an appropriate joke. But here we go. And I told the joke. And the adults that were listening were like, okay. you want to break the ice and bring humor to somber events, right? Isn't the whole purpose of a memorial to sort of celebrate the person, the memory of the person that you love so much? But it kind of backfired. But Gus was, regardless of my, bombing that joke, was like grinning ear to ear. It was pretty funny. Okay, that was dumb. On the move.